I love that this TEDx event is about the theme of transformation. Because we are living in a time of transformational leadership. There is more evidence and research to support the importance of our emotional intelligence and of how our sensations inform us through our bodies, our sensate intelligence. And this is particularly inspiring to me because this is how horses teach leadership. Through the awareness of our emotions and our sensations, they are exquisitely sensitive and will give us honest, immediate, and direct feedback if we show up and what we say and do is not the same as what we feel or think. They tell us when we're not being authentic, and even more importantly, how to come into a state of authenticity. So I'd like to share this story with you of how I was initiated into a level of leadership that transformed my own life, and how I choose to show up in the world. So I'm 10 years old, and the movie The Black Stallion was about to be released, and I'm horse crazy. It's a story about this young boy and this noble Arabian stallion that are stranded on a deserted island, and it's about their accomplishments and their triumphs against all odds, overcoming adversities and developing trust and respect for one another. This horse teaches this boy about courage, empathy, humility, keys to leadership understanding. And their companionship and their love for one another is unwavering. And I remember sitting there in the chair and the tears are streaming down my face, and I make this crazy secret promise to myself that I am going to own a horse just like the one in the movie one day. But my life with horses did not go smoothly at all. In fact, I learned how to become a poor leader, not a good leader. My coaches taught that command and control and aggression and force, these are what you needed to gain respect from a horse. And even though in my body I knew it was so wrong, I was young, impressionable, and I just assumed that the experts knew better. But I became disillusioned and even more disheartened, and I gave up my dreams of becoming a professional rider, and I left the horse world. But horses are a part of my soul, they always have been. And so years later, when I re-entered the horse world, I questioned all of the traditional approaches to horses. And I began a journey of self-discovery. I sought out clinicians and trainers who knew how to be in harmony with horses, the way that they are with one another. And as my own leadership capacity grew, I could see the changes in the horses, and I knew they had so much to teach us about ourselves. And then I was faced with one of my biggest life and leadership challenges. That crazy secret promise I made to myself when I was 10 came true. An Egyptian Arabian, imported from Saudi Arabia, born into a sheik's stable, was right here on Vancouver Island. He was out of the movies. He was magnificent, majestic, noble. Just one little hiccup. The owner refused to sell him to me. And it took me 5 years of dedicated efforts, and at times feeling as though I was begging, before she finally agreed to sell it to me. She had the same dream I did. But during that 5 years, he was shuffled around to different trainers in different barns, and I lost touch of who and how he was being cared for. But the day finally comes, and I'm vibrating with excitement. I'm 10 years old again, and the trailer is coming down the driveway, and it stops, and they open the door, and my heart sinks. I'm horrified by what I see. This once majestic stallion is now so emaciated I can count every rib. His once beautiful coat is now dull and dirty, and he is one angry horse. Ears pinned and teeth bared, lashing out with his front hooves. He's absolutely a dangerous animal. And of course, I'm legitimately afraid of him. And a few weeks go by, and I'm not making any progress with this horse. And then one day, standing on the outside of his paddock, I have this aha moment. I realized that I was looking at him through a lens of pity, seeing him as broken and powerless and needing to be fixed. And as long as I continued to see him as a victim, then I wasn't going to be any help to him at all. Now, knowing that horses are mirrors for ourselves, this compelled me to look at my own feelings of powerlessness. I had to take off the mask of bravado. I had to face my own insecurities, feelings of doubt and unworthiness that I had buried, misunderstood, disregarded. I had to look at it all. And in the process of doing that, I began to see him in a different way. I saw past his aggression and his fear. I began to see his courage and his strength. Most of all, I saw his vulnerability. Now, vulnerability is a tough thing. Nobody likes to be vulnerable. But it requires a level of empathy, too. And empathy is when we can see and feel and listen to our own needs, so that we can see and listen and feel the needs of another. But in this practice of vulnerability, it takes incremental levels of tolerance. But the gift in vulnerability is that it facilitates transformation. It ignites change and innovation. You discover hidden treasures, and it allows for deeper connection. Vulnerability leads to empathy, leads to compassion. You know, in meditation practice, we simply observe our thoughts and our feelings and our senses coming and going, and our breath rising and falling. And now I was being called to take this confident level of presence into a stressful and a dynamic and a chaotic situation with this horse. To really ground myself, to remain calm and centered, no matter what he did. This is the practice of stillness and inner silence. Stillness equals strength. It is the power point behind action. In a recent leadership and horses workshop that I co-facilitated, a very wise young lady said to me, she might even be sitting in the audience today, she said, leadership is stillness in action. So over time, Lael continued to teach me about gaining his trust and his respect. I needed to be exquisitely clear in my physical boundaries and even more aware of my own personal space and equally respectful and mindful of his. I need to be acutely sensitive to my verbal communication and my body language. Subtleties in my body language could either create a positive or an extremely negative effect on him, and there was no room for mixed messages. You know, more than 90% of our communication being nonverbal, our body language can have a profound effect on how we feel about ourselves and how we affect other people. If we simply stand a little taller and become aware of the rhythm and the rate of our breath, we can lower our own stress hormones, our cortisol levels. We can calm an agitated horse. We can quiet a room full of people. These are the practices of humility. Humility is not about being unique or small. Quite the contrary. Humility is about an inner strength and a resilience and a willingness to just show up and be teachable in a state of learning. And sometimes it's simply just not known. It's beginner's mind, open and willing to be surprised by our own perceptions. Now, over time, I realized that this horse was actually teaching me about power, but authentic power with purpose. We have all seen corporations and organizations collapsing in recent years, and we have witnessed one of the most catastrophic economic recessions of our history, all because of the misuse of power. Power is a daily practice of looking inward. It's a journey of self-discovery. It's how we show up in the world. And as emerging leaders, it is our responsibility to gain control of our unruly senses, to become the witness of our own actions, and to develop mastery of our own minds. This is the wisdom of leadership through horses. And I call it the 5 pillars of success, or 5 pillars of power. Presence, empathy, humility, stillness, body language, authentic power. Now, we live in a society where we are measured often by our external successes, our extroversion, our appearances, but that's not who we are. And quite frankly, horses don't give a damn about those things. They don't care what your job is, how much money you make, the kind of car you drive, or the letters behind your name. They only care about how you show up in their presence and what your behavior tells them about yourself. With their attunement to our emotions and our senses and watching every nuance of our body language, they will give us the direct, the honest, the immediate feedback. And they will show you continually how to come into your own self, how to come into your own leadership capacity, into your own honest truth. I've worked with the top professionals in the field of equine guided leadership and psychotherapy. And each time making it my own experience. And in turn, I have coached countless adults and youth to realize their own individual leadership capacities. Schools like Maryland University, Prescott University, Royal Roads in Victoria, Guelph University, all offering equine guided leadership development. And Stanford University is offering a medicine and horses program that will teach interns how to develop empathy for their patients. Corporations like Cisco, Shaw Communications, Boeing, provincial ministries, and now the military and the RCMP are recognizing the immense value of this work. So I want to leave you with one last quick story. It was a transformative moment that happened for me about 10 years ago. And I was in Arizona at an equine workshop. And I'm standing at one end of a 100-meter-long arena. And at the other end of this arena is a badly abused horse that had just recently been rescued by the ranch owners. And I take a deep breath, and I become really aware of my posture, my body language. And I place my hands on my heart, and I genuinely empathize with what I imagine is his experience of feelings of mistrust and fear. And before long, that horse walks all the way across the length of that arena, and he joins me. And he stands in front of me, and he lowers his head, and he gently just places his nose on my chest. And we stand there in silence for several minutes. It was in that transformative moment that I embodied the qualities of empathy, of courage, of humility. I led with my own instincts and with compassion. And I felt the true, honest power of stillness and silence. My favorite quote: if you want to awaken all of humanity, then awaken all of yourself. If you want to eliminate the suffering in the world, then eliminate all that is negative and dark within you. Truly, the greatest gift you have to give the world is your own self-transformation. And my stallion, Leo, he's now 22. He's happy, he's content, and he continues to teach me about leadership, taking nothing for granted. So my offering to you is this. We all have the capacity to be effective and inspiring leaders in the world, really making a difference. So don't be afraid to explore the black horse within you. Allow yourself to be seen. Open your hearts and love with all of your hearts. Connect deeply. Be kind to yourself. Be kind with one another. And most of all, make sure that you are the leader of your own life. Thank you.